It is an incredible honor to guest host Jeopardy.
Something happened behind the scenes at Jeopardy that Sony never wanted public. When Mayim Bialik walked off set in 2023, executives were furious. She thought she was doing the right thing. Instead, she lost her job and $2 million. For over a year, she kept the real story secret. Then, in 2025, she couldn't stay quiet anymore. What Mayim finally admitted about her firing exposes how brutal Hollywood really is. This isn't just about game shows. It's about power and punishment in Hollywood. Mayim Bialik came into the world on December 12, 1975, in San Diego, where her parents Beverly and Barry tried to build a simple life shaped by their Jewish immigrant past. Their families had come from Poland, Czechoslovakia, and Hungary, and had settled in the Bronx with nothing but hope. Barry wrote stories and tried small business ideas. Beverly taught drama and brought Mayim to little theater shows long before she understood what a stage even was. When she was still a toddler, the family moved to Los Angeles, but San Diego stayed in her heart because it was where everything in her story began. Life was modest. Nothing about her childhood suggested fame. Yet at 12, she stepped into the world of acting with her first film, Pumpkinhead, in 1988. It was a small role, but a true beginning, built on nothing more than love from home and a quiet push toward the arts. There was another thread woven into her life, something bigger than childhood auditions. Her family was tied directly to Mayim Bialik, the great Hebrew poet born in 1873. He had published his first poem in 1892 and had become a symbol of Jewish identity. Mayim always carried this legacy, not as a burden, but as something living inside her. She said her great-grandfather and Mayim Bialik were first cousins, which meant the connection was closer than people guessed. That link shaped her identity and followed her through every choice she made, from acting to neuroscience, giving her a sense of belonging to something old and meaningful. Growing up in Los Angeles gave her a layered life. Her home followed Reform Jewish traditions. The family kept kosher, lit candles on holidays, and used Yiddish phrases in daily life. At school, she moved through a more secular world where kids did not always understand her customs. That mix sometimes confused her, but also made her aware of how identity can stretch and bend without breaking. She went to Hebrew school twice a week, joined fellowship groups, and helped in synagogue activities. At night, she would study her schoolwork after long rehearsals or family gatherings. These pieces blended into a way of life that taught her how to balance tradition and the fast-moving world around her. Life at home had its own challenges. She was the only girl among 3 brothers, including Brian and David. Their bond was strong, but also messy. Being the only sister sometimes made her feel unseen. That feeling of being the odd one out pushed her to think about the mind, about behavior, about why people act the way they do. Later, this became a focus of her PhD at UCLA, where she studied Prader-Willi syndrome and spent hours trying to understand human behavior. The early loneliness and the dynamic with her brothers shaped the way she parented her own children, always trying to give them the emotional support she wished she had understood better as a child. Money was tight. Barry faced failed business attempts that put the family under pressure. Sometimes they barely had enough to send Mayim to auditions. Friends and relatives would help with travel costs because they believed in her. Her parents kept her grounded. Acting never excused her from homework or normal life. Fame meant nothing at home. They pushed her toward education, and she learned to treat every opportunity with gratitude. Those struggles made her careful with money and taught her resilience long before she ever stood in front of a camera. Her big break came at age 11 when she played the young version of Bette Midler's character in Beaches in 1988. The movie premiered on December 21, 1988, and became a classic tearjerker. Mayim spent 4 months auditioning every week. She wore a red wig and brown contacts to resemble Midler. Bette Midler even retaught parts of her singing and dancing scene herself, guiding the young actress like a mentor. Filming was intense. Heavy wigs, hot makeup, long days, quick naps in her trailer. The scene under the boardwalk was filmed on a set in Los Angeles and became one of the moments fans still remember. The movie's theme song, Wind Beneath My Wings, hit #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and won 2 Grammy Awards in 1990. Mayim sometimes cringes at her performance today, but she knows that Beaches changed her life. Before Beaches, there had been other steps. In 1987, she played Ellie in Beauty and the Beast, a role that earned her a SAG card. She was one of the youngest actors to get that achievement in that era. She improvised lines about poverty and hardship, drawing from the stories she had heard at home. Her scenes dealt with homelessness and loss, and she brought a seriousness rare for a child actor. That experience opened her eyes to what storytelling on television could feel like. In 1988, she appeared in 2 episodes of The Facts of Life as Jennifer Cole, a tough orphan who spoke her mind. These episodes aired in late April and early May 1988 during Season 9. The role typecast her early as the sassy orphan kid, but it also helped her learn how sitcoms worked behind the camera. Her talent began to stand out, and she was quickly noticed for her sharp delivery. At the same time, she played Frida in 8 episodes of Webster from 1988 to 1989. That set was not always kind. Mayim faced teasing and bullying from some of the kids. The pressure became so heavy that at 13 she started therapy for the first time. Those sessions were her introduction to the emotional toll that young actors often carry behind their smiles. It would stay with her for years and later inspire her to speak publicly about mental health. Pumpkinhead also came out during that period. It was filmed in 1988 and released in the United States on January 13, 1989. She played Christine Wallace, a small role that ended in the movie's opening kill-off. The horror effects were realistic and frightening, especially for a 12-year-old. Seeing blood packs, monster suits, and the heavy atmosphere on set left her shaken. She later said it made her question what kind of stories she wanted to tell and where to draw emotional boundaries. With these experiences behind her, she wanted more control over her career. Agents had pushed her too hard, so she made her own audition tapes at home and mailed them to producers. In 1990, she became one of 7 girls invited to audition for Blossom Russo. Her boldness worked. Her homemade tapes caught the attention of the right people. The pilot was shot and aired in 1991 and changed her life overnight. She became Blossom at age 14. The show premiered on July 5, 1990, and climbed quickly, reaching more than 14 million viewers per episode at its peak in 1991 and 1992. It ran for 5 seasons and filmed a total of 114 episodes from 1990 to 1995. While her friends were in school, she spent her days on set from 7 in the morning to 9 at night. Fame grew fast. Anxiety grew with it. She felt lonely, even while millions watched her each week. The weight of being a teen star was far heavier than the bright sets suggested. Blossom became known for emotional storylines. The show talked about alcoholism, divorce, and family struggles, stories that echoed the tension in Mayim's own home. Her parents divorced when she was around 15. She hid her real-life pain from her castmates, afraid of tabloids. In a 2019 interview, she said she was moody and dark during filming, almost using the role as a shield against what she felt inside. Acting helped her cope, but it also drained her. As Blossom became more popular, the pressure from outside increased. Producers played into fake romance rumors between her and Joey Lawrence to attract media attention. In 1992, paparazzi camped outside her family home, snapping photos of a teenager who only wanted some privacy. She later said the invasion felt frightening and overwhelming. Joey Lawrence has repeated many times that they were just friends, yet the rumors helped keep the show in the spotlight, turning both of them into teen idols across the United States. In 1991, she won the Young Artist Award for Best Young Actress. Even with that success, she earned only about $15,000 per episode in the early seasons. It was lower than what many child actors made at the time. She saved most of it for college, instead of spending it on luxury. This shaped her attitude toward money, and later led her to speak openly about pay fairness in Hollywood. She learned early that fame didn't always come with financial security. When Blossom ended in 1995, she faced a new challenge. Casting directors could not see her as anyone but the smart, awkward girl she had played for 5 years. More than 20 similar roles came her way. She rejected them all because she refused to be trapped in one character. So at 19, she walked away from Hollywood and enrolled at UCLA to study neuroscience, Hebrew, and Jewish studies. Fans were stunned. A teen star disappearing for books and labs felt unreal at the time. She still did small voice roles to pay bills, like voicing Lola on Hey Arnold from 1996 to 2002, but her heart was in academics. She stayed away from live acting and let herself vanish into a 12-year acting break that helped her figure out who she was without fame attached to her name. Her time at UCLA became a strange mix of heavy science classes and little leftover pieces of her old life. In 1999, she stepped back into acting for one small guest role on Step by Step, pushing her degree back by a full year. She later said she regretted it because she had finally found a rhythm at school and broke it to make other people happy. Still, she kept her student life full. She joined UCLA Hillel, led a Jewish a cappella group, and wrote music for performances. When she was not in the lab studying brain chemistry or hormones, she was rehearsing songs with friends who knew nothing about her fame. It was the first time she felt both creative and private at the same time, and she held on to it. Her real passion in those years grew out of her neuroscience work. She became fascinated by oxytocin, the hormone people call the love molecule, and wrote early papers on how it shapes bonding and social behavior. She waited tables to pay tuition because she refused to use her Blossom money. She wanted to earn her degree on her own terms. She carried trays, washed dishes, and went home smelling like kitchens, all while writing about brain cells and hormones. Her commitment made her stand out even before she knew she would one day write an entire PhD on similar topics. But she was not always steady. In 1997, she hit academic probation because of undiagnosed ADHD. She struggled to focus, missed deadlines, and felt lost in classes that moved too fast. She thought about quitting more than once. Instead, she threw herself into research on Prader-Willi syndrome, a rare genetic disorder linked to obsessive thoughts and behaviors. Something about the intensity of the disorder felt familiar to her scattered brain, and digging into it helped her develop coping strategies. Slowly, she found her way out of probation and back into good standing, learning how brain chemistry and frustration are deeply tied. That understanding would follow her for the rest of her scientific life. She graduated in 2000 with a BS in neuroscience and minors in Hebrew and Jewish studies. She had offers from Harvard and Yale, but turned them down because she wanted to stay in Los Angeles near her family. Her professors warned her that being a former teen actor would hurt her credibility, especially in a male-dominated field where people already doubted women. She kept going anyway. 7 years later, she earned her PhD from UCLA. In 2007, she proved she could be both the girl from Blossom and a real scientist at the same time, something no one had ever seen before. Her PhD journey began in 2000 under Dr. James McCracken, a top expert in child psychiatry. She dove into the hypothalamus, the tiny brain region that controls hunger, emotions, and hormones. She studied how oxytocin and vasopressin behave in adolescence with Prader-Willi syndrome, trying to understand why they struggle with extreme food cravings and obsessive behaviors. Her findings were presented at major conferences in 2003 and 2005 and were among the first to show that abnormal hormone activity might explain some of the behaviors once blamed on parenting. By 2007, her research was recognized as groundbreaking. 2005 became one of the most intense years of her academic life. She paused her studies briefly to appear on Curb Your Enthusiasm, then went right back into the lab while pregnant with her first child. Other researchers slowed down during pregnancy, but Mayim kept doing 18-hour research days and was even dissecting rat brains in her final trimester. People in the lab were stunned. She pushed through morning sickness, fatigue, and stress because she did not want to delay her work. She finished her core research in 2006 and published early findings under her full name. That year proved to her that motherhood and research could exist in the same life, even when everyone else said it was impossible. Her 2007 dissertation spelled everything out in full. She showed how Prader-Willi children as young as 2 were affected by disrupted hypothalamic function. She proved that their hunger, bonding issues, and obsessive thoughts had real biological roots tied to oxytocin and vasopressin imbalances. Her work pushed the field forward and got cited in major medical journals. It changed how scientists approach treatment by showing that behavior alone was not the full picture. During her PhD years, she worked as a teaching assistant and took small acting roles on Seventh Heaven to cover expenses. The more she appeared on TV, the more her lab colleagues dismissed her as the actress who wanted to pretend she was a scientist. She published early papers under pseudonyms to avoid the bias. By 2006, she reclaimed her name, and by then, her work spoke louder than any stereotype. Her story became an example of what women in STEM face when they carry any kind of extra identity that others do not respect. She also faced a frightening moment in 2003 when she almost miscarried due to research stress and grant rejections. She spent days unsure if her pregnancy would survive. That fear shaped her later career as a mental health advocate. Her books, Beyond the Sling and Girling Up, grew from these experiences. She talked openly about the emotional cost of trying to be everything at once, and she used her story to push for better support for women balancing family and demanding careers. After all these years in science and silence, her life took a sharp turn again in 2010. She had not acted in almost a decade when she heard about an audition for a show she had never watched. She walked into the room with her real neuroscience PhD on her resume. The casting team wanted a female version of Sheldon, so she watched a short clip and realized she had met real men like him in labs for years. She matched the rhythm of his speech and landed the role of Amy Farrah Fowler with only 6 lines in her first episode. It aired in May 2010. By season 4, she became a regular, and Amy quickly became a fan favorite. All those years of science gave her character a depth no one could fake. Behind the scenes, she faced challenges that pushed her again. One of the hardest moments came during a major kissing scene with Jim Parsons. After her real-life divorce, she struggled with intimacy on camera, and the script was rewritten more than 15 times to make sure she was comfortable. The episode finally aired in February 2014 and became a turning point for Amy and Sheldon's story. It showed how deeply the show cared about the actors behind the characters. By season 10, she was earning $450,000 per episode after negotiating pay raises in 2017 with Melissa Rauch. The original cast even took $100,000 pay cuts to help both women move closer to pay equality. She also fought for scientific accuracy and corrected mistakes in over 20 episodes. Some episodes even included ideas from her PhD research. She earned 4 Emmy nominations from 2012 to 2015. In 2018, she nearly walked away from the show during a contract dispute about unequal pay, pushing the studio to rethink how they valued their cast. She stayed until the finale in 2019, but her stand inspired others in Hollywood to speak about fairness. In 2013, she was in a car accident so severe she almost lost a finger. She needed multiple surgeries and missed episodes while recovering. When she returned, she kept consulting with the show's science team, so everything Amy touched on the whiteboards stayed accurate. Mayim Bialik married Michael Stone on August 31st, 2003, in Los Angeles. He had converted to Judaism for her, and they planned a Victorian-themed wedding filled with soft lights and old-style touches. Friends expected a normal Hollywood love story, but that changed when Mayim and Michael quietly shared that they would co-sleep with their newborns. People whispered about it long before the babies arrived. Then, in October 2005, when their first son, Miles Elon, was born at home, Mayim chose not to take any pain medication. The story spread fast, and suddenly, everyone had an opinion about her. Critics accused her of ignoring medical safety. She stayed calm through it all and defended her choice. Their second son, Frederick, arrived in 2008, also at home. Both boys grew up homeschooled, with Mayim using the neuroscience she had studied during her PhD. Every decision she made kept her in the spotlight, and Hollywood circles argued non-stop about home birth, co-sleeping, and homeschooling as if it were a national debate. Her marriage began to strain under all the pressure. In November 2012, after 9 years together, Mayim and Michael announced their divorce. They blamed irreconcilable differences, but insiders said their opposite parenting styles played a major part. Even though they agreed on custody quickly, the attention on Mayim only grew stronger when people discovered how strict she was with her son's diet. She raised them fully vegan, free of processed food, dairy, and animal products. Some people nicknamed it slings and nuts. Others claimed her kids carried nut milk to parties and ate home mixed snacks instead of birthday cake. Nutrition experts worried publicly about deficiencies. Tabloids turned every grocery bag into a headline. Her private life became a soap opera people could not stop watching. In 2014, she spoke openly about veganism and released a cookbook titled Mayim's Vegan Table, with more than 100 plant-based recipes. She encouraged people to see vegan food as healthy, ethical, and simple. Her message spread fast, but her time on The Big Bang Theory made things complicated. The cast and crew loved their usual meat-filled catering, and her constant push for vegan options created behind-the-scenes tension. Some co-workers admired her commitment. Others felt she was pushing too hard. Online debates exploded. Fans argued whether she was inspiring or lecturing. The cookbook still became a commercial success, but the conversations around her never really stopped. In 2016, she surprised people again when she opened up about her struggles with OCD and ADHD. She said the diagnoses came after her divorce and that she relied on therapy, structure, and small habits to manage her symptoms while co-parenting. A year earlier, in 2015, she had started Grok Nation, a blog named after a word that means deep understanding. She wrote about mental health, parenting, faith, and personal growth with unusual honesty for a celebrity. Many fans said her words helped them finally seek therapy. She kept telling people that understanding your mind was not weakness, but strength. Her Jeopardy journey brought even more twists. She stepped in as host in August 2021 after Mike Richards left the show. She hosted 92 episodes and brought her own gentle, chatty style. Some viewers loved her warmth, but others said the tone felt different from the serious rhythm the show carried during Alex Trebek's era. Ratings for some primetime specials dropped nearly 20%. Rumors spread about whether audiences connected with her as deeply as they did with Ken Jennings. Even with an Emmy nomination, the questions never stopped. In May 2022, Sony made her and Ken official co-hosts. Things felt stable until the Writers Guild strike began in 2023. Mayim walked off the set in support of the strike, choosing not to cross the picket line. Sony executives were angry, saying she had obligations. Ken took over her episodes. When Sony later offered her alternate hosting options, she refused. She wanted the syndicated version or nothing. That decision placed her on the sidelines. In December 2023, she shared on Instagram that Sony had removed her as host. Sony released its own statement an hour later. Fans were stunned. Whispers about behind-the-scenes tension spread quickly, especially about her support for the union. After her exit, she explained that stations told Sony they preferred Ken's consistency. She suggested ideas for new spin-offs, but Sony did not bring her back. By August 2024, her name disappeared from the Jeopardy website. She admitted she lost around $2 million because of the walkout and had to shift her focus to podcasting. The removal from the site made it clear Sony wanted distance. Her story showed how standing up for your principles can cost you more than you expect. In a 2025 Farin podcast, she finally said out loud that her firing was directly tied to her strike walkout. It had disrupted production and even canceled crossover plans with her sitcom Call Me Kat. She said the experience humbled her and forced her into a career pivot. Even with the fallout, she kept supporting labor rights and spoke openly about how painful the experience had been. Her honesty turned her situation into a lesson for others working in Hollywood. Her writing career grew alongside the controversies. In 2012, she released Beyond the Sling with Dr. J. Gordon. The book offered more than 270 pages of stories, science, and guidance from her own life. It sold over 50,000 copies in its first year, surprising people who assumed a celebrity could not deliver real parenting science. Her descriptions of unmedicated childbirth and home birth sparked shock and praise together. Readers who wanted alternative approaches loved her. Critics claimed she pushed methods too extreme for regular families. In 2017, she wrote Girling Up, a guide for teenage girls built on neuroscience and her own memories from her blossom years. She talked about self-image, anxiety, body changes, and social pressure. She followed it in 2018 with Boying Up, focusing on boys' development. Schools began using both books. Tens of thousands of copies sold. Parents said, Her honesty made science feel personal. In 2020, she relaunched her podcast, Mayim Bialik's Breakdown. She mixed mental health, science, and personal stories. By 2023, the show passed 10 million downloads. She brought guests like Kristen Bell to share their own battles. People said her vulnerability made complicated topics easier to understand. After her Jeopardy exit in 2024, she paused the podcast to gather herself, telling fans she needed healing time. In 2022, she delivered a TED Talk urging young girls to push into STEM fields. She spoke about brain biases and the quiet pressures that hold girls back. In 2025, she worked with PETA on vegan Passover videos. She said that every year, a vegan diet saves nearly 200 animals, and that choosing compassion fit the spirit of liberation. Some people called her idea bold. Others said she twisted tradition. Either way, people kept talking. In 2025, she announced a neuroscience memoir that would connect her Hollywood life with past trauma and her academic training. She said the book would include what she witnessed on a 1994 Woody Allen film and how it shaped her. The announcement stirred conversation across Hollywood. People expected it to become one of the most talked about memoirs of the year. By 2025, her net worth had reached around $25 million. Her income came from Big Bang Theory residuals, book sales that passed 500,000 copies, and speaking fees that rose as high as $25,000 per event. But in 2023, the IRS launched a surprise audit on her wellness brand. They questioned deductions tied to vegan products, organic foods, and homeopathic therapies. The process nearly cost her a six-figure penalty. She had to sell assets and renegotiate business contracts to stay afloat. The story spread fast, showing how even a successful actress could get pulled into financial trouble. Her connection with UCLA left a long-term mark too. Since 2010, she had visited the campus to teach neuroscience topiks and talk about Prader-Willi syndrome. She mentored more than 200 young women. A 2024 UCLA study showed a 15% rise in female neuroscience enrollment between 2018 and 2023, linked partly to her influence and her role as Amy Farrah Fowler. Students said she made science feel human. In 2024, controversy struck again when parts of her old parenting books resurfaced. People accused her of promoting delayed vaccination during a Southern California measles outbreak. She posted an apology on YouTube in October 2024, saying she never opposed vaccines but delayed them years earlier for personal reasons. She also mentioned she had grown up unvaccinated and survived a measles scare herself. Her explanation caused book sales to drop 30% and got several events canceled. Still, it opened new conversations about how public figures influence medical decisions.